Ladies and gentlemen, turn the mute button off. This is the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dada. Well, we've got some news today, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? We're not going to talk about it right now. We'll get there when we get there. We got to do some house cleaning stuff here first. But some pretty big news, some pretty exciting developments have taken place. Before we get there, well, first of all, as I've said and as I will continue to say, thank you guys so much for all the support you've shown. Thank you for being here every day, tuning in, listening in. And then again, if you can't, go ahead and set your thing to auto-download, and then we don't need to worry about it. But you guys have been awesome. Again, I said hang in there. It's going to be a fun offseason, and so far you guys have done that, and I appreciate that. Shout out to Robert Miller, by the way, for jumping in on the Patreons. Really appreciate you guys. I'm going to try to keep stuff going on over there. I don't think we're going to do a live stream for these other games. It's just not really interesting enough. And so we're going to have to do something else, probably NFL draft related. I just don't know if we have enough guys to kind of tune in. I tried to do sort of a mock drafty thing during the game. It was kind of impromptu, so obviously some people are going to be like, I have no interest in this. But I don't want to do it unless there's people that are interested in actually going to participate as opposed to watching me do a mock draft, because I don't want that. So I'll try to find a way to gauge interest in that and see if there's enough people that want to get in there and do just a couple quick mock drafts or whatever the case may be. We'll figure it out. Okay, first of all, and this is not really football related, but kinda. I can't not talk about it. There's a report here by Colin Rugg that somebody sent me. It says, new man wearing a Detroit Lions jersey detained after allegedly crashing a Mercedes into the McNamara terminal at the Detroit Metro Airport. The man, wearing an Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey, was shouting while being detained. The vehicle made it all the way to the ticket counter. According to local reports, 6 people were treated for injuries. It's unclear exactly what caused the crash. Well, yeah, I have a theory. It was the person driving the car caused the crash, but by the way, I would not be laughing if there were more serious injuries. Apparently, the injuries were very minor and everybody's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and laugh because it's funny. The very lame joke I made is that Lions fans are crashing out hard, literally and figuratively. I also love the way when I went for a little summary from AI just to be like, can you give me some context? Do we know anything else? I love how cold and just matter of fact AI is about some hilarious things. It says social media reactions blend concern for the victims with Lions fans jokes, highlighting the team's recent playoff frustrations as ironic backstory amid the chaos captured in viral videos. Figured I'd go through a couple gems in the comment section. Mark says, update, he was pissed about the Lions' new OC hire. Patrick says, to be fair, parking at the airport does suck. Zach, who apparently is a Lions fan. Again, maybe I shouldn't laugh, but I'm gonna. He says, that's how we start the offseason. LFG. Lions coming back next year. Just watch out. Oh. Guy named Dad says, fantasy football punishment gone wrong. B says, my guy took all the drugs. Oh, if you can't laugh. I mean, I hope everyone's okay, including the guy that seemed to have some kind of a mental breakdown or something. Then, in Detroit Lions news, the Detroit Lions lost offensive tackle Dan Skipper. He is going to retire. Dan was not a starter, but he was sort of that number 2 swing tackle guy, kind of like, I guess, what Jordan Morgan had been for us, kind of that whenever a tackle goes down, he's probably going in kind of position. This is just another one in a long line of what I've been saying about, a lot of older guys. The Lions less so than what you get with the Bears and the Vikings, but there was a lot of that, You've got a really good thing here, but you've got some age that you got to deal with. So Skipper, 31 years old, decided to retire. That's going to, their offensive line has already been, I don't want to say decimated, but it's taken some hits for sure. And they lost a little bit of depth there too. So, and Packers are in a similar situation with the offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams kind of attack it. Moving on to Minnesota Vikings, and I don't know how seriously you want to take this, but it is what it is. I saw Walter Football. I was on YouTube, and I just happened to see this pop up. Most people in the comment section are saying BS, but he does have some connections. I don't know how solid this one is. It's always kind of tricky with these people who are not, they're not Ian Rapoport, so they've got some legit connections and probably some more tentative ones. But it's worth mentioning anyways because it's pretty big if true. He says, just heard from a source that the Vikings reached out to the Bengals to trade for Joe Burrow. Asking price was too high. Bengals wanted multiple first-round picks, a defensive player, and J.J. McCarthy. To be fair, regardless of the source, it wouldn't be surprising if any of this happened. It would be pretty tentative, but there's a chance the Vikings could be a pretty lethal force with Joe Burrow. I call it tentative because Burrow has got a lot of injury issues. They'd be giving up a ton of draft picks. They have a ton of other needs that they would have a hard time filling with the contract of Joe Burrow as well as the lack of picks. But I'm sure the Vikings are well aware that a move like that would make them immediate contenders, especially considering they had a very good season with frickin' Sam Darnold at quarterback. And then in other Vikings news, we've got this little nugget here, which goes along with what I've been saying for a very long time. Flores, I think, is a good defensive coordinator, but he's not a very well-liked person. He's got a heck of a rough personality. His comments about Tua were pretty shocking, and then, of course, there's all the other scandalous things that were taking place. So he doesn't have a super great reputation. Mike Pettine was speaking to, who is this? Ultimate Cleveland Sports? I don't know. But I'll just let this play out. It speaks for itself.
That's kind of why I wanted Brian Flores to be the next coach of the Browns, but obviously either he's not interested or they're not interested. I don't know. I know he has that reputation. You worked with him. He was tough on the players in Miami, and I think he's been vindicated. What's your thoughts on Coach Flores?
Probably not many that I would prefer to share. I mean, we did see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's why I spent this past year on offense. I was there in 24 and 25, or 23 and 24 on defense. So, I'll take the high road on that one.
That's kind of why
So, again, I mean, you got Mike Pettine, who I as far as I know, he gets along with everybody. I've never heard of Mike Pettine having any issues with anybody before. Seemed to be well liked by the players and by the coaching staff and everything else. He's worked with everybody from, Rex Ryan to whoever, Dude's been around all over the place. And he goes to Minnesota and spends 23-24 as obviously a defensive member of the staff, presumably under Flores, and basically essentially tells Minnesota, I will not stay here and work with him. And they worked out some kind of a thing where he could be sort of a help to the offense and kind of help them figure some stuff out. But specifically moved because he did not want to work with Flores. And then even when asked about him, he couldn't even fake. A lot of times you just kind of fake it and make stuff up and he's an intelligent guy or whatever. You can tell the disdain he has for Brian Flores. He's not even going to fake it. He's simply going to, without giving specifics, he's flat out going to say, I don't like the frickin' guy. And I left the defensive side for that reason. He probably left Minnesota for that reason. Or retired, I think, is what he actually did. And so, unfortunately, because of that, I tend to think that's a big part of the reason he doesn't have a head coaching job right now. I think he would have been a frickin' shoo-in if there wasn't so much fear of his personality issues. And whatever those are exactly, I don't really know. I mean, I know he's extremely hard on players, as the interviewer kind of alluded to, and obviously has made some comments that are not what you would expect to hear from a coach to a player. But also all the other concerns and concerns about your ability to, I mean, how are you going to lead an entire coaching staff when your last stop, you have Mike Pettine, a veteran coach who's been around a million different people and a million different personalities, say, I refuse to work with this guy. And this is a guy that's going to be in charge of an entire group of people. You never know. I mean, if the Vikings absolutely dominate, somebody's going to potentially pull the trigger anyways and just take the risk. I don't know that Flores ever gets a head coaching job again. That may just be done. And then finally, we move on to our friends, the Chicago Bears. We got a little bit for them too. Just as a little bit of a refresher here, the Chicago Bears' history has been up and down over the course of their franchise. I tend to think of them as a franchise that's never been good, but that's, just kind of my timeline. I was born in '86. That would have been when the Bears won the Super Bowl. But that was their one Super Bowl. In their entire franchise history, they won one. Do you know who the quarterback of the Super Bowl champion Bears was? Is a man by the name of Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon played quarterback for the Chicago Bears. They went on to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, it wasn't necessarily on the back of their quarterback. It was, one of the best defenses in NFL history, one of the greatest running backs in NFL history. They had a lot going on. But Jim McMahon was their quarterback. Pretty historic. You know what I mean? He also spent a little time in some other places, including the Green Bay Packers. Here is an interview that was done recently with Jim McMahon.
Asked me what was the best organization I played for. Green Bay was. It wasn't even a thought.
They've won one Super Bowl, and the quarterback that won that said that your rival, your biggest rival, is the best organization. Can you imagine? I mean, I guess it would be similar, but not as bad. Similar. If an interview was done with Brett Favre and he says, man, best place, best organization I ever played for was Minnesota. Not even a question. Minnesota Vikings, hands down, greatest organization I've ever played for. That would be pretty devastating. But imagine if there was no Bart Starr and all those Super Bowls and no Aaron Rodgers and that Super Bowl. And Brett Favre and his Super Bowl was the only one we had ever had. And he went and did a little stint over there in Minnesota and then basically went on to say, Green Bay kind of sucked, didn't like it, went to Minnesota for a very brief period of time, and it was fantastic. Greatest organization I've played for. Bears fans are having a good time. They're have this sort of blissfulness going on over there. Everything I look at is just awful for them. I mean, in the midst of the best season they've had in I don't know how long, you have a coach that nobody likes. You have a quarterback that nobody likes, who also is mediocre, which is, one of the more inaccurate quarterbacks in football. Really only had success because the offensive line was unbelievable. And the guy was sacked, roughly 0 times this past year. And in the midst of that, your city doesn't want you. Your state doesn't want you. The only quarterback that's won a Super Bowl in Chicago says that Green Bay is a significantly better franchise than yours. You are the most hated and unloved franchise that exists. Nobody wants you. Nobody wants to be associated with you. Nobody likes you. I mean, I get sort of this us against the world thing, but I mean, you're going to have to take that over to Indiana now. Who even is us? I guess Bears fans, wherever we are, it's us in northwestern Indiana against the world. Nobody likes our quarterback and his super unbelievably, shockingly arrogant ways. Nobody likes our coach because he's a freaking scumbag that treats Matt LaFleur, who's an extremely popular coach, poorly. It's us against the world, man. Which, is not terrible if you win something. It's not terrible if you can impose your will, but you're going to have to be a lot better than you were last year. And, I hesitate to doubt the Bears because they kept defying odds throughout the entire year. But if we follow the whole regression to the mean thing, you're going to be a significantly worse team next year. Anywho, let's go ahead and take our first break. We'll come back and see what else we got. So we got a little bit more. I'm going to keep teasing it, but I do want to save the best for last. So I'd mentioned the Jets. Actually, this kind of fits in with a couple different things. I'd mentioned the Jets were having some issues filling their actual coordinator positions because people are turning down opportunities to go there. They just don't want to go there. We also went over the Buffalo Bills' complete debacle. Disastrous situation. There's also this report from Sportskeeda. People around the league do not view the Philadelphia Eagles' vacant offensive coordinator position as an attractive job opening. Diana Rossini says, I think coordinators on the list are aware that navigating Philly is difficult, and it's not the easiest place to step in, especially if you're looking for a successful few years. And that makes sense, because it's a disaster there. I think their head coach is also very much unlikable, based on several reports, not to mention whether it's his fault or the quarterback's fault or what. Quarterback seems to be quite difficult and hard to work with. And the quarterback and the wide receivers don't seem to get along very well. So even amongst successful teams, and we always talk about teams like the Jets or the Bengals or whatever that are a complete cluster, and everybody knows that they're bad, and everybody knows nobody would want to work there even though you take the job because you need it or whatever. But now we can add the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles to that list. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you or change your mind necessarily in this moment about, should we keep or fire the coach? Should we keep or fire the GM or whatever the case may be? And I'm sure there are plenty of things that you can complain about that you don't necessarily like about the organization. But this whole grass is always greener thing, whining and complaining about a lot of stuff that the organization does, we don't really deal with this kind of stuff. Even when there was drama here, it was mostly centered around, like a guy. And it was usually determined to be that guy as opposed to the organization, even though they pointed at the organization. And that's not just Aaron Rodgers. That's guys like Zadarius Smith. It's guys like Devondre Campbell. Campbell seemed to have a problem with the team. And it's like, oh boy, seems like something's really going on. Maybe there is something wrong with this team. And then look at Devondre Campbell. He goes somewhere else. He walks out on his team like just a complete scumbag. Zadarius Smith, same thing. He leaves. It's like, oh, man, what's going on? Something's wrong. Zadarius Smith, same thing. He just has a terrible reputation all around the league. In fact, he's basically successful wherever he goes and can't seem to find a job. And as far as Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it certainly was telling that he went to the Jets and all those dramatic issues left Green Bay and all of them went to the Jets. They had the exact same, if not more, issues. Sticking on that coaching theme, and we'll probably stay here for a while, the Miami Dolphins promoted Bobby Slowick to offensive coordinator. Several people have kind of pointed out that it's interesting that he did not feel the need to grab any guys from Green Bay. I don't know. I don't read too much into that, I guess. I think the implication is meant to be that, see, we have these garbage offensive minds here, otherwise he would have been poaching them. I don't know. And then the only other minor coaching thing that I saw was that Ohio State is going to hire former Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith as the next offensive coordinator. So be interesting to see how that plays out, I guess. Okay. The two bigger stories here. Number one, the thing that I really wanted to happen happened. Actually, well, the two things I wanted to happen, but we'll see. The Pittsburgh Steelers did the thing. They hired Mike McCarthy. I am extremely happy, first of all, for Mike McCarthy. Make all the jokes or whatever, but obviously he's a legendary Packers coach and whatnot. He's a Pittsburgh guy. They've always talked about that. He's a Pittsburgh tough guy and all this stuff. This has got to be his absolute dream. I would imagine this is the pinnacle. This is like any one of us who've been in coaching our entire lives, and after several stints he was with the 49ers back in the 90s, with the Packers forever, with the Cowboys. I mean, he was all over doing all kinds of stuff. he finally, in probably his last stint as a coach, gets to the pinnacle, gets to coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The other very obvious thing to keep an eye on, and I will be unbelievably disappointed if it doesn't happen, is that supposedly, this is what I had mentioned before, there was a source, I guess, a former player for the Jets, who said that Rodgers told him that something to the effect of like he would go where McCarthy goes, or something like that, meaning he wants to play for McCarthy again, which kind of makes sense. I think it was kind of weird because toward the end of the McCarthy era, it felt, I mean, this is kind of normal, I suppose. I think it happened with the Packers as well. There was this grass is always greener thing. He started talking about how he admired the Shanahan offense and all this kind of stuff, and it just felt like he wanted something like that. Then he got it, and he's like, I don't like this. This isn't what I do. He had spent his entire career running Mike McCarthy's stuff, and as much as he may admire the Shanahan stuff, this isn't his thing, right? Then he goes over to the Jets and tries to keep some level of continuity or whatever. But I feel like it would be the dream for him to get back with Big Mike and just kind of, I mean, I'm guessing in Rodgers' mind, I don't know how McCarthy would feel about this, but in Rodgers' mind, kind of run it back like the old days. You know what I mean? And to some degree, I mean, you got DK Metcalf now, so, it's not like, well, we don't have the pieces. I mean, you got some guys. And who knows if the Rams go on to win the Super Bowl? Who's to say that? And I haven't looked at his contract, but who's to say Devontae doesn't give her a run in Pittsburgh? You know what I mean? Probably not. I think he wants to be in Cali, and why would you leave the Rams? It seems like a great. But okay, conspiracy theory time now. What if Stafford retires? If Stafford retires, I think there's at least a chance that you could see Devontae for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just saying, it might be kind of cool. It was kind of funny because I came down, and like I said, every time I come down here and I go over to my Twitter decks or whatever, it's got all my feeds on it. And the first thing I saw was the Steelers did not hire Mike McCarthy. And I stopped reading and thought, that sucks. But I mean, that's kind of what I thought. I didn't think they were going to hire Mike McCarthy anyways. And then I keep seeing the McCarthy thing. I'm like, geez, I mean, they're really hammering this McCarthy thing. And I haven't even seen who they hire. Maybe they just didn't, but it's like a really big deal. And then I look at another, I kind of actually read one, and I'm like, it says that they hired him. Turns out what I had read is that the report was, they said they didn't hire him just to get Rodgers, but, it doesn't hurt. Which, to be fair, if they hired Mike McCarthy just for Rodgers, that would obviously be pretty stupid. I mean, you're talking about the future of your franchise as a head coach to maybe get one more year of a guy that is clearly not in his prime anymore. So I will take them at their word that they are not that stupid. And either way, again, this is what I love. This is the entertainment that is the NFL. I feel like the last several years it's been like this. Ever since around the time that Brady went to Tampa, maybe like a year or two prior to that, the offseason just got wild and just crazy stuff was happening, including with Green Bay, where Rodgers is going to the Jets and all the different stuff that's going on. It has been, it's kind of like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong kind of thing, but it's, whatever the most, entertaining thing that could happen is the thing that will happen kind of deal. I feel like we've gotten to that point. Last year was actually a little bit disappointing because you had, Myles Garrett stayed, Max Crosby stayed, Hendrickson stayed. It was just kind of waiting for like the big. There were a couple big things, obviously, again, including the Green Bay Packers, who seem to be, unlike the old days, at the front of the news cycle pretty regularly with Micah Parsons. But very, very happy for Mike McCarthy. Very happy that we get to see him back there and doing that. And I desperately, it would be the worst possible thing. And I can't imagine that Rodgers would walk away from this. I mean, I thought he would come back anyway. It just kind of felt, I mean, he's playing decent. It's not like he's continuing to decline. It's like, okay, dude, you got to hang it up. I mean, you got a new coach as an opportunity to give it a run again. Historically, you've had a good defense. Obviously, it hasn't gone great, but you give it another shot. You got great pieces like Watt is there. You got DK Metcalf now. Give it another year to kind of work with Metcalf and whatnot, see what happens. And then you get the news it's Mike McCarthy, and you're going to say, I'm going to hang it up? Come on, you can't do that to us. There's no way. All right, enough messing around. On to the most interesting thing that has happened. So Ian Rapoport did a little ditty here. Remaining coaching searches likely to heat up following Championship Sunday's result. And as he pointed out in his tweet, most of these are head coaching type of things. Las Vegas Raiders and their candidates, Cleveland Browns, Arizona Cardinals. Those are 3 teams looking for head coaches. Then he puts in the Green Bay Packers. Here's what he had to say. Green Bay lost its defensive coordinator to Miami when the Dolphins hired Jeff Hafley as their next coach. The Packers have conducted a few interviews already, including with former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon and Bears assistant Al Harris. There is also mutual interest between the Packers and Wisconsin native and ex-Badger star Jim Leonard, who currently is Denver's defensive pass game coordinator / assistant head coach. This cat, I swear. While nothing is set, the hope is both sides can get together for a discussion after Sunday's AFC title game. With Leonard's ties to the state, this one makes sense. Leonard is considered to be one of the top defensive coordinator candidates. Obviously, that makes me very, very happy. I was a little worried, I guess, that there haven't been any reports on this whatsoever. A little concerned that maybe the Packers just weren't interested. I never really, he's going down. I never really believed, sorry, I'm watching the UFC prelims here. Never really believed the report, or not even reports, just the theories that, Matt LaFleur was so jaded by the situation previously that, he was never going to give him an opportunity because he's so mad at him because he turned him down or whatever. Again, it's possible, but I mean, that would be shockingly petty and really upsetting if that was actually a thing. And look, I'm always trying to pick these things apart as best as I can and be as big of a skeptic as I possibly can in terms of the wording of these things. But number one, Ian Rapoport, I think, is as good as they get with this kind of stuff. Ari Murov is another guy that I really like and respect. But he doesn't do a lot of wordplay. He doesn't do a lot of these games. He's going to tell you whether he knows or doesn't know. And this is very straightforward. There is mutual interest between the Packers and Jim Leonard. That is, there is no gray area here. It doesn't even say, a lot of times things like this will say, there is believed to be interest. That would essentially mean somebody from the outside looking in thinks that there's probably interest, and that's it. And it could be more firm than that, but you can't assume it's anything more than that. This says there is. So, to be very clear, I don't know how else to interpret this other than the Packers want him, and he wants to be the Packers defensive coordinator. And then from there, when it starts off with, while nothing is set, which immediately just sounds like, it's not quite done yet, but like this is going to get done. It says the hope is both sides can get together for a discussion after the AFC title game. So I absolutely am rooting against the Denver Broncos. Not that it necessarily matters, but I mean, let's get this done. You know what I mean? I'm ready for this Sunday to be over, for the Broncos to lose after a valiant effort, especially by the defense, and to hear that they have a meeting scheduled and that it went well, and then I'm kicking cables. There goes my screen. Oh, it's back. And by next week, we have the announcement that Jim Leonard is our defensive coordinator, and then from there come the other questions. Who does he keep, right? Do we keep DeMarcus Covington, which, as I went through it before, I think does make a lot of sense. It doesn't have to be Covington. He may have his sights set on some other people that are, very qualified and whatnot, but the fact that he's primarily a back-end kind of guy, and the feeling is he would need somebody like a solid field general to handle the front four, or the front in general. Cat. Good Lord, it's -12, dude. I'm not sending you outside right now. Should I just let you in here? Are you going to be annoying? Yeah? No? Okay. Anybody else hear him say no? Okay. Yeah, I don't think letting him in is going to fix anything. All right. So, I mean, I can tell you this. Based on this report, I mean, anything can happen. They still have to meet and all that. But, I mean, they've already met. They've already done the interview. And, again, it sounded like, you know, the exact thing that has been used against him ever coming here. The fact that it sounds like they were kind of in the process of talking numbers or whatever that whole report is. It sounds like probably, even if there wasn't an official offer, that Jim Leonard was going to be offered the job. And then, you know, it wasn't that the Packers changed their mind, it's that Jim Leonard changed their mind. Now, things change over time, but it's that report that helps to lead me to believe that they probably still want him and that the interview went very well. They like him as a person, that's somebody that he'd like to work with, all that stuff. And I would bet he would love to be here, which is the other thing people, well, he turned it down once. Why wouldn't he turn it down again? It's because the situation, the Wisconsin Badgers head coaching job is his dream job. That is his absolute dream job, and he thought he was going to get it. And then he didn't. Now, if the Badgers hire or fire Fickle or something, then we may have a little bit of a wrinkle. But other than that, I don't see why this wouldn't get done if there is still mutual interest, which I hope that there is. And again, I as I've said, I'm not going to go back through the whole Jim Leonard thing because we've done that already. But as I said on the last hiring cycle, I ended up not being a big fan of his based on a couple comments and the way that he plays and schemes football. And I honestly don't even remember what that was. But I bring that up just to say, because this is the constant accusation, is that if he wasn't a Badger guy, if he wasn't a Wisconsin guy, nobody in Wisconsin would want him. I'm telling you that's not the case. I came into this expecting to have the exact same opinion as last time. I don't know what my exact reasons were, but I came into this saying, okay, let's go through and and who are the best candidates. And Jim Leonard consistently came out on top. And any way I would ask the question, any way that you'd look at it, you know, and like I said, I went through the checklist of all the different things you need a guy to have. And he just to me, there's no guarantees, but it just feels like the absolute best option. I mean, he's certainly regarded as a young, intelligent, brilliant guy. I mean, look at the last time he was at DC. I know it was a different thing and it's college and all that, but my goodness, it wasn't that long ago. He was like the defensive mind that was out there. You know, he was a coveted asset. And when the Wisconsin thing got blown up, he went through just a little tiny detour. But again, look how quickly he shot right back into the NFL, how quickly he shot right back up to the top of that defense without being a defensive coordinator. Right? They threw all the titles in there before he got up to that point. It's time. It is time. He's going to end up being a defensive coordinator. I have very little doubt. It's just a question of where. Why wouldn't he be our defensive coordinator? I know it's not as cool as Al Harris, but we can get excited about it because it is a very cool. It is a very, very cool hiring. It hasn't happened. I don't know that it's going to happen, but don't feel like this is just some stupid local Wisconsin connection, and that's the reason that they're going to make this stupid decision. If they make the decision, it's because he is a brilliant defensive mind. And also, don't get caught up in the Pettine talk. One of the other accusations kind of levied against him is he's a Pettine guy. He runs the same Pettine scheme. As is true with all of these guys, they've been through a lot of different schemes with a lot of different guys. Even by the time he got to Wisconsin, he had so many different groups of guys that he had worked under, including Pettine, but not limited to Pettine. Then you had like Dave Aranda, or however you say it, out in Wisconsin, and a bunch of other guys. I'd forget, again, I ran through this the last time, but he had even like talked to a lot of other NFL guys when he was in college. He spoke with a lot of college guys to try to refine his scheme, to try to tweak it and do all these different kinds of things. He is, at this point, as is probably Pettine and everybody else, so far removed from the original, whatever it would have been, 2014 Mike Pettine scheme, with the Buffalo Bills or whatever team it was at the time. The idea that he's going to come in here and it's going to look exactly like what Mike Pettine brought, there are always going to be similar concepts. There are going to be things that he learned from his time with Pettine and Rex Ryan and all those guys that I'm sure he's kept with him. But he has been through so many things, not to mention he's his own coach. Like I said, with all these other guys, they all have their own ideas and their own ways of trying to get things done and beliefs on how the best ways to get things done. And then again, on top of that, not only is he so far removed from that, but he has to apply his completely different scheme to a completely different roster than what Mike Pettine was dealing with. So I can't tell you what they're going to decide. And again, I'm speaking as though he's already hired, but argument's sake, oh my Lord, he's down already. Anywho, I'm just speaking, for the sake of argument or, as a hypothetical, if that were to happen. We don't know exactly how that play out. Definitely start digging a lot more. Not to mention we'll get. I'm sure we'll get to hear him speak and everything else. But if and when anything official happens, we'll be trying to dig in quite a bit more as far as what he's been doing most recently. It's going to be hard to know because in Denver he's helping somebody else employ their scheme and everything. So you'd almost have to go back to Wisconsin, which we'd probably do. Just to kind of get a look, which, again, it's going to be really difficult because college is so much different. The thing that I love is that I basically said you can't run what he did in Wisconsin in the pros, especially with the guys we had. We had these massive edge rushers, and in Wisconsin, his his linebackers were actual linebackers, right? It was like legit 3-4, where you've got 240-pound guys inside and 240-pound guys outside. The type of guys outside that rarely make it to the pros, and if they do, they're very undersized. I mean, we kind of got some of those guys. Not to mention Micah can be one of those guys. I mean, Van Ness clearly is not, but it provides that level of flexibility where you don't know. Plus, you got inside guys that are pretty solid blitzers. With between Quay and especially Edgerrin. But he did a lot of that with mugging up on the line, and you never know who's going to come and who's going to drop. Again, it was easier to do in Wisconsin because the inside and outside guys were so unbelievably similar. But I think you could end up doing some of that here in Green Bay. So we'll see. I don't know. All right, let's take our final break. We'll do a little bit of a chat on these postseason games, and then we'll get up out of here. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so first and foremost, we have the AFC Championship game, and then there were 4. New England Patriots at Denver Broncos. Unfortunately, this is probably not going to be as good of a game as everybody had hoped. The Denver Broncos had a bit of a fiasco where they had, again, run a pretty stupid play just to kind of run out some time and whatnot, and ended up, I believe, breaking the quarterback's ankle. So, he is out, and so go the Denver Broncos' hopes. I would say good because I want to be petty about that whole 90s thing where they beat us in the Super Bowl or whatever, but, that was kind of a long time ago. I can maybe get over that. So it's going to end up being the New England Patriots, led by Drake May, up against Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos. Fortunately for the Broncos, their defense is kind of their strength. Denver's defense ranks top 3 in points and yards allowed and has elite sack production. There's also the altitude factor that could possibly go in Denver's favor. But at the end of the day, New England also has a pretty good defense, so it kind of balances out, even if you say that Denver's defense is better. But I think the gap between, the defenses and the offenses at this point, given Jarrett Stidham as a starting quarterback, very strongly puts things in the favor of New England. The other thing that might actually make this a little bit closer than people expect is that it's kind of expected to be a defensive slugfest. And so if you keep the score low enough, this could be a thing that kind of comes down to, a couple turnovers, couple bad calls or whatever. I mean, it could at least keep it relatively close. Now, for the sake of there being at least a somewhat interesting Super Bowl, I do hope that it's not a Jarrett Stidham against the Seahawks or Rams, for that matter, Super Bowl. That wouldn't be massively entertaining. But in addition to Bo Nix, J.K. Dobbins is out, tight end Lucas Krull is out, linebacker Drew Sanders is out, and then questionable is wide receiver Troy Franklin with a hamstring, center Alex Forsyth with an ankle injury, center Luke Wattenberg with a shoulder injury, and then safety J.L. Skinner with a quadricep injury. For the Patriots, running back Terrell Jennings is out with a concussion. Defensive tackle Josh Farmer is out with a hamstring. Linebacker Harold Landry is out with a knee. Questionable is wide receiver Mac Hollins and cornerback Carlton Davis. Some of the other little dope sheet stats or whatever, Broncos, as I said, top 3 in points allowed, 18.3 points per game. Also in yards allowed, and also top 3 in third down defense, along with having historic sack numbers. Patriots defense has come on very strong in the postseason, especially with multiple turnovers forced. They are on the road, but have a very good road record this year. And they are a very run-heavy team, so we'll see how that works against this Broncos defense. Patriots are actually just 4.5-point favorites, so as much as it seems kind of like a joke that Denver is just going to get steamrolled here, clearly not. I think part of that has to do with the expected low scoring, but that is a pretty surprising number, to be honest with you. I think for the most part, they're expecting a close defensive battle that the Patriots largely control throughout the game in a sort of 24-17 type of game. That seems to be the expectation. As for the NFC Championship game, obviously we got Rams, Seahawks. This one's kind of tough because I want to say, man, you look at the Rams against the Bears, it was not super inspiring. You look at the Seahawks, incredibly inspiring football team. But this is common opponent, right? So third time they would have seen each other this year. These things are always weird. You can never fully guarantee what's going to happen. Especially since, Rams are a 12-5 football team. I mean, they're a legit squad. In their 2 meetings with Seattle, the first time the Rams won 21-19. The second game, the Seattle Seahawks won in overtime. That was a 38-37 game. So kind of interesting, again, common opponent, anything could happen, but one game very defensive-centric, one game very offensive, which is kind of not super surprising because they both have really good offenses and really good defenses. So at any point, one side or the other could absolutely take over, which is also why it could be a complete blowout, right? On the first game, you had both sides' defenses controlled. The other game, you had both sides' offenses controlled. If one side has offense and defense controlled this time, it's going to be a complete crap show. But I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty good game. If it is one-sided, I'm going to lean Seattle. But again, the Rams have looked better very slightly, right? A 2-point win and a 1-point loss. But I would expect this to be a solid game. And it's the later game, too. So that'll be a good one to be able to finish off this championship with. You've also got 2 different styles, although they're both good offense, defense. Seattle Seahawks, real solid, strong, physical rushing attack. Seattle, much more aired out. Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua. Not that Seattle can't bring that, obviously, with Jackson Smith and Jigba and whatnot, but that's kind of the contrast. For the Rams, their tackle, Rob Havenstein, is going to be out with an ankle. Pass rusher Byron Young is questionable with a knee. For the Seahawks, linebacker Chaz Surratt is out. Tackle Amari Knight is doubtful. And then fullback Robbie Austs, what a name, and tackle Josh Jones are questionable. So not a lot of aside from Havenstein, not a ton of real big notable names. Seahawks very good at home this year, and they are at home as the top seed in the NFC. They have a 7-2 record on at home. I think from a betting standpoint, there's not a ton of lean either direction, but one of the things I've seen more consistently is to bet the over. Again, one of these matchups was a little bit lower, so I don't fully trust that. But both of these teams have the firepower to take the total straight up. As of right now, at least from what I'm looking at, the Seahawks are just 2.5-point favorites, which again, I get it. It would be, based on the last two matchups, kind of silly to assume anything other than that. But the game's also just sitting at 46, which I was surprised because it's just 3 points higher than where Denver and the Patriots are sitting at, which is definitely expected to be a defensive matchup. But, you know, when you've got a 37-38 shootout the last time they came together, it's at least worth exploring. I'm not doing it. I'm ending the season on a high note. I don't think I'm betting anything anymore, at least on the NFL season. We'll see. I'll keep an eye on some stuff, but had a very, very good year, and I might just end it on a high note here. Anyways, folks, hope you all enjoy the games tomorrow. Be safe, have fun, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.